Well, mining has been part of Upper Michigan's culture for over 170 years. In fact, some believe the early copper miners were here thousands of years ago. But that culture has gone through some major changes in recent years. We'll talk about the changing world of mining, and the conversation starts right now.
From TV6, this is The Ryan Report. Here's your host, Don Ryan.
Well, our guest this morning has been part of that changing culture of mining here and around the world. Kristen Mariuzz has a degree in environmental engineering, spent some time after earning that degree working for the Michigan DEQ, and eventually found her way into mining, where she would ultimately be named the general manager of the Eagle Mine. She recently took on a new assignment from Lundin Mining's Eagle Mine's parent, as she was named the company's Vice President, Environment and Social Performance. Especially pleased to have Kristen Mariuzz as our guest this morning. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You know, that job title kind of talks about the changing culture of mining, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. But first, one of my favorite parts of the show is getting to know our guests and giving our audience a chance to know that as well. So you're a Yooper, I know that.
I am.
Grew up in Ishpeming, right?
I grew up in Ishpeming and graduated from Westwood High School.
Okay. And were there any miners in your family?
There have been. So my grandfather worked on the railroads for the mining company. My father was a miner, my husband was a miner, and I started in college at Cleveland Cliffs.
So when you went away to Michigan Tech, what were the thoughts? What, was mining in your future, or were you thinking something different at that point?
While I was at Michigan Tech, it crossed my mind. I was focused, environmental engineering, but really groundwater focused, and said I would like to work for a mining company or maybe clean up old Air Force bases, that kind of work. But then when I got into my career at the DEQ, I think that kind of slipped away. I was focused on wastewater treatment at the time, and I thought maybe my career would head in a different direction. So when I started working on the Part 632 mining law, at that time, I guess, is when I started to, again, revisit the idea of working in mining.
How did you get drawn into that, into new mining law?
Well, at that time, I worked for the Water Division, and they wanted a representative on the stakeholder group that was compiling or composing the law and the rules package. And just through that process of being on that stakeholder group, working with many different people from mining companies to NGOs and the regulators, whether they be federal, state regulators, it kind of piqued my interest.
And while you were going to Tech, you had a chance to get a part-time summer job at the Empire Mine. So you got a taste of mining, didn't you?
I did. I spent one summer doing environmental work, and then the next summer I chose to be a vacation replacement instead. So I saw a couple different aspects of the mining industry during college, enjoyed both roles. And they've actually been something useful to me, even today.
I don't know if everybody realizes it, but in those days at least, when they would hire part-time people, they were doing the actual jobs of miners who went on vacation. Did you ever get to drive one of the big trucks?
That was my primary job.
Was it really?
It was, yeah. So we were vacation replacement. So if somebody was on vacation, we had to fill in for whatever their responsibilities were. There was many different jobs that we had out in the pit. That's where I was assigned. But primarily I was driving a truck.
So when you first became involved with the Eagle Mine, I think it was still owned by Rio Tinto, wasn't it, or the project? It wasn't a mine at that point, but it was in the works, let's say.
Yes, I started in 2010, and they were just clearing the mine site for construction.
So you were very much involved in the permitting process, weren't you?
Well, I was. I've seen a lot of aspects of Eagle because I worked for the DEQ. So I was part of the regulation. When we were writing the regulation, I was part of the permitting team within DEQ. I left the DEQ in 2007 before permits were issued to Eagle Mine, and took a 3-year break. I was home with my kids for those years. And then in 2010, Eagle Mine was looking for an environmental manager, and that's when I decided it was time to go back to work.
Okay. And eventually, of course, Lundin bought the Eagle Mine project from Rio Tinto before it opened still, I think, wasn't it?
Yes, it was 2013.
Okay.
So we had built a lot of the mine site. However, the mill still needed to be redeveloped and reconstructed.
And you were named general manager or managing director. I'm not sure what the right title is. I think they've changed it a couple of times, but How did you feel about that, taking on that assignment?
Obviously apprehensive, excited. It was certainly, there was a moment of, I'm an environmental engineer, are you sure? But at the same time, I think there was the apprehensive piece of it was I had worked alongside a lot of those people as a peer for a very long time, and I didn't know how I would be accepted in the role. But I'm really proud of everything that we've accomplished at Eagle Mine, and I was pretty excited to be able to lead it.
So a couple of unusual things here, at least from the perspective I've seen, having observed mining for a long time. First is a woman in that role. That hasn't happened very often. I don't mean just at Eagle Mine, but in the mining industry.
Right. There have been other women in managing director roles globally, but you're right, it is unusual. So it was, I felt a little bit like maybe I'd be under a microscope, I'd be watched a little bit closer, but I'll be honest that I have always felt very supported by the workforce at Eagle. The management team, when I took on the responsibilities, they helped me in areas that I didn't know as well, and trusted my decisions, and it has gone really well.
The other thing that's different is you came from this environmental background, and so often mine managers have come from mining backgrounds, you know, operations side of the business. So that's another feather in your cap, I would say.
It is, and it's exciting for the folks that are in environmental engineering, maybe students today or starting out their careers, to realize that, you know, there's other opportunities out there. It's not just, you know, staying right focused on environmental issues, but you know, that technical background can give you a lot of credibility in different areas, and you know, your career can go anywhere.
Sure. We'll talk more about that in just a couple of minutes. I'll be back with more after we take this 2-minute break. Our guest this morning is Kristen Mariuzz, until recently the managing director at the Eagle Mine, now has a new assignment for Lundin Mining. Let's talk about that. It's Vice President, Environment and Social Performance. So what will you be doing in that assignment?
So my responsibilities will be overseeing the environmental aspects and social performance aspects for all of our operations globally. We have operations in Chile, in Brazil, in Sweden, Portugal, and then here in Michigan. You know, today the world is much more focused on environmental issues and social issues than they had been in the past, and companies are expected, you know, to understand those expectations and perform. And so my responsibilities will be to make sure, you know, from a company perspective and a global perspective, that we're acting accordingly.
Do those issues relate differently in different countries? I mean, is it the same wherever we go in mining?
I mean, I think in general, people are concerned about a lot of similar things: climate change, water, you know, the social jobs, local jobs, and so yeah, they tend to be similar, but certainly there's going to be different cultural aspects in the different communities. The needs, the expectations of the communities are going to be different. So yeah, it'll be exciting to kind of dig into the different challenges and the different opportunities throughout.
I would think some of the government issues could be different as well, you know, with different governments having a different look at mining.
I would venture to guess yes. You know, some, I think in certain areas, environmental issues, you know, and decisions can be very politically driven, and in other areas, not so much. I'm already starting to see that. I'm only in week 3 right now, but you know, slowly digging into the different operations and their challenges, I can see that there's going to be a difference in those political issues.
While that may be true, you know, it would seem, and maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, that what you experienced here is probably as strong as it gets. I mean, you had to do a lot, not you, but everyone, you and others, to be able to open the Eagle Mine.
Yes, there was you know, it's really come a long way. When you look back 10 years and the level of controversy and some of the things we had to overcome, whether they be the community expectations or the authorities, the environmental authorities and their expectations, where we are today versus what it was then, a lot of learnings along the way, a lot of challenges, some but I guess we learned from all of them, and the opportunity to be able to take those learnings and experiences to some of the other operations is exciting to me.
And one of the keys, I think, for Eagle Mine was building a strong relationship with the community, wasn't it?
It was, and not easy to do. So I have to give a lot of credit to that team at Eagle. You know, a lot of perseverance and a lot of being consistent, and you know, there was many different things. In the beginning, it was a lot of talk. It was, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And I think when things really started to change was when we started to act on those and prove that we really were going to do what we said we were going to do. And it's a long process. It doesn't happen overnight. It's definitely a marathon. And
included in that, I think, was allowing some others to kind of monitor what you were doing, and not just regulators, but even from the community.
Yeah, you know, it started in the beginning with focus groups. I think one of the things we needed to recognize is that a company can't come in and tell a community what they need or what they should be concerned about. We needed to listen to the community about what did they need, what were their expectations of us as a business. And so those focus groups helped get that community insight. And then when we went into operation, we recognized that some people were uncomfortable with our data on the environmental performance side, and they really wanted a third party to be monitoring our site. So we have a program in place now that we're really proud of, best practice, I'd say, internationally, and they can come in and they can monitor on site and around site, and all that data is published on Superior Watershed Partnerships.
I think at an economic club meeting you once said you sometimes felt like the mine was under a microscope.
And it does, and that's one piece of it. The other reason is because we're the first mine to be to get permitted under the new mining law.
Right.
And there are other ventures out there in the Midwest and companies that want to start an operation. And certainly, you know, we feel like we have elected officials watching us, we have regulators watching us, we have communities watching us. We've built a good reputation, but we know how quickly you can lose that as well.
Is that new mining law doing what it was intended to do? Is it working?
I think it is. I think it's been a really it's a very robust. It's been very protective. You know, our environmental data that we're collecting, it looks good. I think that the protective measures that the law required the company to put into place have been really they were adequate and they're working.
Okay. We'll continue our conversation in just a couple of minutes. Back with more on today's show after we take this break. And our guest this morning is Kristen Mariuzz, has been the managing director of the Eagle Mine, now a vice president with Lundin Mining. You know, talking about mining, here a lot of people have accepted mining for many years, but it's not widely accepted by everyone. Some people don't like it. Mining is essential, though, isn't it? And important, and doing good things.
It is, and you know, oftentimes the root of some of the controversy is also where the same people and the same focus as the ones who want green energy and who really want to push forward some of the change that we need to see in the world. And in order to have green energy, renewable resources, all of that, we really do need mining as well. So, you know, one thing that so often people don't realize is that the industry in general is doing a lot of really good things on the sustainability front, and we're just not good at telling our story. So oftentimes mining flies under the radar. There's a lot of legacy associated with mining, a lot of environmental legacy, but I think that's changing, and Eagle Mine has, you know, certainly been one company out there that we're showing how we can do it right, and I think we're going to see more and more of that going forward.
Let's talk a little bit about the Eagle Mine and its future. They recently expanded into the Eagle East, which has extended the life of the mine.
Yes, Eagle East originally extended the life of the mine to 2023, and then through some additional drilling that we've done underground, we were able to announce this year that we were able to add another year and a half. So we're mid-2025 now, and that was a really exciting project to get into operation.
Is there any additional exploration going on now?
Well, we did we did get rid of our surface exploration program last year. So in February, we quit doing exploration up near the mine site, and then in July, August timeframe, we ended our program in the western counties. Right now, we do have a couple drill rigs underground that are doing mostly its definition drilling around Eagle East, looking kind of filling in what the surface didn't get. But there are some exploration holes planned. So I guess I say never, okay. But we're anticipating that it's really just going to be some smaller around Eagle East.
So there could be some further development by Lundin, but at this point, it's pretty iffy.
Pretty iffy,
okay.
Yeah.
Mines are developed with the expectation that minerals will bring a certain amount of money, and market conditions change that sometimes. So how has it worked out for the Eagle Mine? Has it been profitable? Has it paid off?
When we went into operation back in 2014, nickel prices were somewhere in the $9 per pound range. Very quickly, they plummeted to somewhere in the $3 something. But at the same time, we also have, copper, but then we have platinum, palladium, silver, gold, and cobalt. And so because of those credit metals, we were able to stay in the black during those low nickel years. So yeah, it's been a good operation. It's been good for Lundin, and I think going forward, it's going to continue to be that.
When you graduated from Michigan Tech, did you ever realize that your career might take the path it's taken?
I didn't. I am one person who doesn't really have a 5-year plan. I always say that opportunities come when the time is right. I just like to keep myself challenged. I like, as soon as I see a new challenge, I decide whether or not I'm ready to move on and take that. So I certainly didn't have a 20-year outlook, much less thinking of mining being, my future.
Right.
So.
Any advice for young women looking at what was considered non-traditional jobs for women?
I think mining, it's an exciting industry to be in and in many different professions. But if it's not mining, there are other industries out there. And my advice to women is, chase your passion. Don't think that you can't do what you want to do because of some stereotype or traditional roles. Chase your passion, because you're going to work a long time, and if you love what you do, you'll be successful at it.
Of course, that's good advice for men too, right?
Absolutely, yes.
It's good advice for all of us.
Yes.
It's certainly been a transition at Michigan Tech from the days when there were only a few women, and now there are a lot of women studying to be engineers and other jobs.
There are, and I hope to see that continue. There have been many women leaders behind me that paved the way, and I hope that we're continuing to pave the way for the young ladies behind us.
Okay, well, good luck in your new assignment.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for coming in this morning. I'll have some other thoughts for you in just a couple of minutes. Well, the countdown has begun. In about 10.5 hours, the Super Bowl will kick off in a game that will be seen on our sister station, Fox UP. This is billed as Super Bowl LIV, or 54 for those who don't read Roman numerals. Here's the amazing thing about this game. When they hit the field tonight, about 100 million people will be watching. Many of those people don't even like football, but they'll be there for the Super Bowl because it's frequently the most watched television broadcast of the year in this country. In fact, the 7 most watched broadcasts in U.S. television history are Super Bowls. And Super Bowl 49, that was played in 2015, became the most watched American television program in history, with an audience of about 114 million viewers. And because all those people are watching, the networks can charge a lot of money for the commercials that appear in the game. This year, a 30-second commercial will cost about $5 million. Compare that with a commercial in this show, for example, that costs, well, let's just say it costs a lot less, really a lot less. And speaking of the commercials, they actually attract a lot of viewers to the broadcast. Sometimes I wonder if people are tuning in to watch the game or the commercials. Some are very entertaining. The problem is, if you're excited about the game, the halftime entertainment, and the commercials, when do you take a bathroom break? It's a tough decision. The seed for this event was first planted in 1920 when the National Football League was organized. Then in 1960, a new league called the AFL with new owners, teams, and players was formed, and the NFL had a rival. But in 1966, the owners in both leagues decided they should merge, resulting in a new NFL with two conferences, the NFC and the AFC. Of course, that meant you had to have a championship game between the two, and the Super Bowl was born. Well, not quite. The name Super Bowl wasn't used until the fourth year. Up until then, it was the World Championship game. Green Bay Packer fans know that their team won the first two Super Bowls, beating Kansas City in 1967 and Oakland the following year. The New England Patriots and Pittsburgh Steelers have the most Super Bowl championship titles with 6 each. The Packers have won the big game 4 times. The Lions, well, they've never been there. The Detroit team has won 4 NFL championships. However, their last was in 1957. The NFC leads the series with 27 wins, while the AFC has won 26 times. Good chance they could be tied for wins after this year's game. And here's one more interesting piece of information. The Super Bowl is the second largest day for U.S. food consumption. I don't know how they do that and how they know that, but they do. The only time we eat more is on Thanksgiving Day, and I think we all know it's not necessarily healthy eating. There's also a lot of drinking that day, and not all of it is alcohol. A report from 2018 said that leading up to the Super Bowl, consumers spent $2 billion on beverages. So enjoy the game. And if football is not your cup of tea, you can always binge watch reruns of the Ryan Report at uppermichigansource.com. I'll be back in a minute. Well, that's our show for this week. Remember, you can watch current and past episodes of the Ryan Report anytime at uppermichigansource.com. Thanks to Kristen Mariuzz for joining us this morning to talk about the changing world of mining and her involvement in that change. And thank you for tuning in. Let's get together again next Sunday morning.